The East End of London was quiet at night. Not the quiet where you feel safe, but a quiet that makes your tummy feel tight. The streets were wet from rain that had stopped a little while ago. The puddles on the ground shone like little mirrors, catching the weak orange light from the street lamps. The lamps flickered, making small shadows dance on the wet pavement. Somewhere in the twisty little streets, far away noises echoed. Thumps, short grunts, and sometimes even cheers bounced off the walls and into the night. Jason Statham walked carefully down the street. He moved slowly, but his eyes were sharp, looking at everything around him. His black coat was wrapped tight around his body to keep him warm. Underneath, he wore a plain gray sweater. His pants were dark, and his boots were big and black. His head was a little down, but his eyes never stopped watching. Tonight, Jason was not walking for fun. He had a special reason to be there. 2 days ago, Jason had heard some people talking. They whispered about Dante Vex. Dante was the king of a scary underground fight place in the city. People called it the Forge. Dante had never lost a fight. He was huge, like a human tank. People said he didn't just win fights, he made people feel small and hurt. Jason heard that Dante had hurt a young man so badly in his last fight that the man had to go to the hospital. Nobody was going to tell the police. Everyone was too scared. But Jason was not the kind of person to run away. He didn't like to see bad things happen if he could stop them. He decided he had to see Dante for himself. The entrance to the Forge looked like the back door of an old broken car shop. Jason walked slowly to the door. The air smelled like oil and old metal. 2 huge men stood by the door. They were big, with thick necks and tattoos all over their arms. They wore black leather jackets and looked very strong. Jason stopped in front of them. He didn't shout or try to look strong. He just stood there quietly and looked at them. There was no anger or fear on his face. He just stood still, but it felt like he was dangerous in a quiet way. One of the big men looked at him carefully and was about to speak. But then, he saw Jason's eyes. Something about the way Jason looked made him think twice. He grunted, stepped aside, and unlocked the heavy steel door. Jason stepped inside. Immediately, everything felt different. The air was hot and heavy. It smelled like sweat, beer, and a little bit of blood. The room was full of people. They crowded around a square area made of bare concrete. A single light above them buzzed loudly. People shouted, laughed, and gave each other money. In the middle of the square was Dante Vex. Dante was huge. He was 6 feet 4 inches tall. His muscles were big and strong, covering his whole body. He had tattoos climbing up his arms and across his chest. A jagged scar ran from his right ear down to his jaw. It looked scary, like it came from a very bad fight long ago. Dante's eyes were dark, but they sparkled with pride. He knew he could hurt anyone in the room and still smile. Jason leaned against a rusty steel column at the back of the crowd. He put his hands in his coat pockets and just watched. He didn't blink much. He didn't cheer. He didn't make bets. He just watched quietly. Dante's opponent was a skinny man. Blood ran from a cut on his lip. He looked weak. His knees shook. His guard was low. The crowd was shouting Dante's name. Dante smiled slowly and cruelly. Then he threw a punch with his right hand. It hit the man's jaw. The man fell down immediately, hitting the ground like a heavy bag. The noise was loud and scary. Dante walked around the square slowly, raising his arms so the crowd could see him. People cheered and clapped. Then Dante looked around the crowd. His eyes stopped on Jason. Jason didn't look away. Dante tilted his head and smirked. "What are you staring at, old man?" Dante shouted over the noise. Jason didn't answer. He just kept looking at Dante calmly. He didn't look afraid. He didn't look angry. He just looked at him like he was ready. Dante's smirk grew bigger. He liked that Jason didn't run. Most people would have. The crowd pushed closer to see what would happen next. Dante's muscles glistened with sweat under the buzzing light. The smell of the room made Jason's nose wrinkle, but he didn't move. He was ready for anything. The skinny man on the floor groaned and tried to get up. Dante laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was a scary laugh, like a lion roaring. Dante walked closer to the man. His feet made heavy thumps on the concrete floor. Jason watched, keeping calm. Suddenly, Dante grabbed the man and pushed him down again. The man cried out, but the sound got lost in the noise of the crowd. Jason's eyes never left Dante. He noticed every little movement Dante made, every twitch in his arms, every shift of his feet. Dante finally stepped back and raised his fists to the crowd again. People shouted louder. They loved Dante. But Jason stayed quiet. He was thinking, planning. He didn't want to fight the crowd, he wanted Dante. After a few minutes, Dante noticed Jason still watching him. He walked over slowly, like a big cat sneaking up. "Do you think you can stop me?" Dante asked, voice deep and rough. Jason shook his head slightly. He didn't answer. His hands stayed in his pockets. The crowd started to sense something. They stopped cheering for a moment. They felt the tension. Dante's eyes were sharp. Jason's eyes were calm. The difference made the room feel strange, like time slowed down. Dante's opponent, the skinny man, crawled to the side. Dante didn't care. He was focused on Jason. The big man's arms were huge, like tree trunks. His chest rose and fell with each breath. Jason's coat looked small on him, but it didn't matter. Jason wasn't scared. Dante took a step closer. The buzzing light above made a shadow across his face. Jason tilted his head slightly. He was ready. Dante grinned and said, "You think you can fight me?" Jason's voice was soft but firm. "I don't think so." "I know." The crowd gasped. Dante laughed again. This time, it was darker. He liked a challenge, but he wasn't used to someone being brave. Most people ran. Jason didn't run. Dante's muscles tensed. He raised his fists, ready to attack. Jason didn't move. He just waited, calm and still, like a rock in a river. The crowd watched, their eyes wide. Nobody moved. They didn't know what was going to happen. The smell of sweat and blood filled Jason's nose. He could hear people breathing fast. Dante shifted his weight, preparing. Jason's heart beat steadily. He wasn't scared. He was ready to stop the bad things Dante was doing. Then Dante lunged forward quickly, faster than anyone expected. Jason didn't flinch. He stepped to the side smoothly. Dante's fist hit the concrete with a loud thump. The crowd gasped. Jason was quick, calm, and ready. Dante looked surprised. He wasn't used to someone moving like that. Jason moved closer, his boots barely making a sound. Dante spun, trying to hit him again. Jason blocked the punch easily. The crowd shouted, amazed. Dante's face turned angry. He wasn't used to losing, not even for a moment. The fight started. Dante swung, hit and kicked. Jason dodged, blocked, and stayed calm. The fight was fast, but Jason never panicked. Every move Dante made, Jason watched carefully. Dante was strong, but Jason was clever. The crowd couldn't believe what they were seeing. Dante, the undefeated king, was having trouble. Jason moved smoothly, never hitting too hard, just enough to block Dante and protect himself. Dante growled, frustration in his eyes. Minutes passed. Dante's arms were tired. Jason was steady. He didn't get scared. The crowd started to cheer for Jason now. Some people even shouted his name. Dante's face turned red. He couldn't believe it. Jason didn't attack out of anger. He didn't enjoy hurting Dante. He only moved to stop him from hurting anyone else. Dante finally stopped swinging. He was breathing hard. Jason's eyes were calm. Then Dante stepped back. He looked at Jason carefully. For the first time, he didn't smirk. He realized Jason was not like anyone else he had ever fought. The room was quiet for a moment. The buzzing light above flickered. Jason kept his hands in his pockets. He didn't smile. He didn't laugh. He just looked at Dante, steady and calm. Dante nodded slowly, like he understood. "Maybe you're different," Dante said, his voice quieter now. Jason nodded once. He didn't say anything else. The crowd started clapping slowly at first, then louder. They cheered for Jason, who had stood up to the king without being afraid. Dante's fists relaxed. He looked at the people around him. Jason turned and walked back to the column where he had been standing. He didn't yell or boast. He just watched, quiet and calm. The fight was over, but something had changed. From that night on, people in the city whispered about Jason Statham, the one who had faced Dante Vex without fear. They said he wasn't just brave. He was clever, calm, and strong in a way that didn't need hitting or hurting anyone. Dante never forgot him. Jason didn't need to fight to be remembered. He just stood there, calm and ready. That was enough to make a big, scary man like Dante take notice. And the city's East End stayed quiet that night. But it wasn't the tense, scary quiet anymore. It was quiet with a little bit of wonder, like maybe, just maybe, someone could change things without being like everyone else. Jason walked out into the wet streets again. The puddles glimmered under the street lamps. The rain had left tiny drops on his coat. He pulled it tighter around him. He didn't smile, but inside, he felt good. He had done what he needed to do. He had stopped the bad thing without becoming bad himself. The city might have been dark, and the streets scary, but Jason knew that one person, even quietly, could make a difference. And that night, the East End of London seemed just a little less scary. The crowd was quiet. Everyone could feel something was about to happen. Jason did not say a word. He just stood there, calm and still. Dante stepped closer. He looked mean, and his voice was a little teasing. "Do you want to say something, or are you just here to watch me hit people?" he asked. Jason looked at Dante slowly. He did not shout or make a loud sound. His voice was soft, but strong. "You are strong," Jason said, "but I think you waste your energy." Some people in the crowd said, "Ooh." They were surprised. Dante's smile disappeared. His face turned serious and angry. He pointed at Jason. "Come over here now." The crowd became excited. People pushed forward to see the man who had just said something bold to Dante Vex. Jason walked slowly. He unbuttoned his coat, folded it neatly, and gave it to a person at the edge of the ring. Underneath the coat, Jason's body was lean, not too big, but strong and ready. He looked like a man who trained to be very precise, not just for looking good. The crowd formed a circle around them. There was one lamp above, shining light and making long shadows on the concrete floor. Dante bounced on his feet. He wanted to hit Jason hard. The referee, who was also a man from the crowd, yelled, "Start!" Dante ran forward like a bull. He swung his right hand like a big hammer, trying to hit Jason's head. Jason moved just a little. The punch missed him completely. His feet barely made a sound as he stepped lightly on the concrete. Dante swung again, this time faster. Jason raised his arm and blocked the punch with his forearm. Then, he quickly hit Dante in the ribs with a small punch. Dante grunted and looked at Jason with narrowed eyes. They walked around each other slowly, waiting for the next move. Dante suddenly exploded with energy. He threw many punches, fast and heavy. Each one could hurt a lot if it landed. But Jason moved his head and shoulders like water. The punches missed him by a little bit. Jason's eyes never left Dante. Then Jason punched Dante with a quick jab. Dante's head snapped back. The crowd gasped. Some people could not believe it. Frustration showed on Dante's face. He tried to grab Jason and push him into a corner. But Jason stepped to the side, grabbed Dante's arm, and twisted it. Dante stumbled forward. In one smooth movement, Jason kicked Dante's legs out from under him. Dante fell hard on the floor. The crowd shouted loudly. Some people cheered, some could not believe what happened. Dante got up quickly. His pride burned hot, even more than the pain in his back. He ran at Jason again. He wanted to use his big strength to win. But Jason moved under a big punch. He hit Dante's chest with his elbow. Then, he stepped very close to Dante. Dante could not swing his fists now because Jason was too near. Jason raised his knee and hit Dante's leg. Dante's leg went numb. Dante stumbled. Jason moved his foot and hooked Dante's ankle. Dante fell flat again. This time, Jason did not step back. He stood over Dante. His breathing was calm. He looked very serious. "Power is nothing without control," Jason said. His voice was soft, but every word was important. "If you keep fighting like this, one day you might not get up again." Dante's chest moved up and down quickly. His face showed pain and also shame. He realized that Jason was much better than him. His voice was rough and almost broken. "Enough, please," Dante said. Jason took a step back. He kept his eyes on Dante for a long time. Then, he turned and walked through the crowd. He did not cheer or smile. He did not shout. He just walked with quiet strength. Outside, it had started to rain. The rain was soft and steady. It washed the blood from the streets. Jason put his coat back on and disappeared into the night. Behind him, the crowd was silent. They had just learned something important. True strength does not need to shout. The crowd stayed in the circle for a while, looking at Dante. Some people were talking quietly. "Did you see that?" one man said. "He just beat Dante with only his skill." Another person nodded. "Yes, it's amazing. He didn't even look angry. He was calm the whole time." Some kids who had sneaked in were looking wide-eyed. They had never seen a fight like this. They whispered to each other, "Wow, that man is really strong." But he didn't need to shout or hit too hard. Dante slowly got up. He rubbed his back and legs. He looked around at the people staring at him. He felt embarrassed. He knew that everyone had seen that Jason was better. Dante had always been proud of his strength. He liked to show people that he was the strongest. But tonight, he had learned something new. Strength alone was not enough. You also needed control, skill, and thinking. Dante went to the side and sat down. His friends came to him. They said, "Are you okay?" Dante nodded slowly. He was not hurt badly, but he felt small inside. He had been shown that fighting with only anger and power could make you lose. Meanwhile, Jason was already far away. The rain made the streets shiny, reflecting the streetlights like little stars on the wet concrete. Jason walked without hurrying. He moved silently, like a shadow. Some people tried to follow him, but he disappeared before they could catch up. The people in the crowd started talking again. "Who is that man?" one asked. "He didn't even shout or show off, but he was amazing." Another said, "I don't know his name, but I hope I can see him fight again someday." Even though the fight was over, the story of that night would stay with the people for a long time. They had learned something important. Being strong is not just about muscles. It's about knowing how to use them, staying calm, and thinking before acting. Dante also learned this lesson. That night, he could not sleep. He kept thinking about Jason and how he had moved so fast and so smoothly. Dante knew he needed to train differently. Not just to be stronger, but to be smarter and more careful. The next morning, the sun came up, shining on the wet streets. People who had been at the fight the night before were talking again. They remembered Jason's calm face, his soft voice, and the way he had moved like water. Kids at school were talking about it too. "Did you hear about the man who beat Dante Vex?" they said. "He was amazing." Dante walked slowly to the training room. He did not feel proud today. He felt quiet, thinking. He looked at the punching bags and the weights. He picked up a small bag and hit it lightly, not with anger, but with thought. "I need to be like him," Dante whispered to himself. "I need control. I need to think before I move. I need to be ready but calm." For many days after, Dante trained differently. He learned to move smoothly. He learned to watch his opponent carefully. He learned that sometimes, waiting and thinking was stronger than just hitting. Jason, on the other hand, moved quietly through the city. He helped people sometimes, but he never wanted anyone to know his name. He didn't care about being famous. He cared about being precise and strong in the right way. The story of that night spread all over the town. People told it over and over. They said, "Real strength is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to show off. Real strength is calm and smart." Some kids started practicing martial arts or exercises. They wanted to be strong like Jason, but they also wanted to be careful and smart. Teachers and parents noticed the change. They saw that children were learning to think before acting, and not just to fight or shout when they were upset. Dante's friends also changed. They saw that being loud and strong was not enough. They started to practice control too. Dante would smile a little when they asked him questions about Jason. He would say, "It's not about hitting hard. It's about being ready and thinking before you move. That's what makes you strong." Weeks went by. Jason remained in the shadows, moving quietly through the streets. He never sought attention. But every time someone saw him from afar, they felt respect. They knew that a man who is calm and careful can be stronger than someone who only uses power. Dante kept training every day. His punches became faster, his movements smoother. He learned to wait, to think, to control his energy. He became better than he had ever been, but now he also understood what real strength meant. It was not just about muscles, it was about mind, body, and control. One rainy evening, Dante walked past the place where the fight had happened. He remembered the soft rain, the way Jason moved, and how the crowd had watched in awe. He smiled quietly. He knew that night had changed him forever. He had learned that being loud and strong could make you lose. Being calm and smart could make you win. The city continued to be busy, with people going about their lives. But some of them remembered the night of the fight. They remembered the calm man who moved like water. They told their children stories about him. Real strength is not about being loud, they said. It is about being careful, calm, and smart. Dante sometimes thought he would never see Jason again. But even if he didn't, he carried the lesson with him every day. Every time he trained, he thought, power is nothing without control. Calmness is strength. Thinking is strength. Years later, Dante became known not just for his power, but for his wisdom. He taught others how to fight, how to move, and how to be calm. He always remembered Jason, the quiet man who had shown him what true strength really meant. The crowd that night had also learned something. They had learned that shouting and showing off is not always the best. Watching carefully, moving wisely, and using your energy with thought is what makes someone truly strong. And so, the story of Jason and Dante spread across the city. Everyone who heard it remembered the lesson. Real strength is quiet. It does not need to scream. It does not need to show off. Real strength is calm, precise, and controlled. Even in the rain, even in the shadows, Jason continued his way. He did not need applause or recognition. He simply moved through the world with quiet strength, teaching everyone who watched, without even trying, that power without control is nothing, and calmness is the greatest strength of all. Wow, what a journey! I'd love to hear what you thought. Drop your reactions in the comments below. If this adventure left you smiling, inspired, or just itching for more, make sure to hit subscribe and tap that bell so you never miss the next story. Thanks for coming along on this ride. And remember, stay curious, stay brave, and keep exploring the world around you. Your next adventure is just around the corner.